Baby Reindeer is a miniseries currently on Netflix that stars actor and writer Richard Gadd, and it was created by Richard Gadd, as it is the story of Richard Gadd. Technically he's playing a character named Donnie, but it is based off of his real life story, and these are events that did happen to him. What are the events? Well, he was stalked by a woman and many other things that transpired about it, which kind of explain why he acts a certain way he does. It was interesting. So how did I stumble across Baby Reindeer? Well, my fiance Stephanie, she heard about it and she wanted to watch it, and eventually she did watch it while she was at the gym and said, "You gotta watch it. I think you'll really like it." And I thought it was like a true crime documentary, and I wasn't really that interested in it, so I kind of put it off for a little bit. But eventually we watched it together, and the first couple of episodes, I think we stopped after episode 2 and then went back to it on a later day, and I was kind of like, this is okay, it's fine, but it wasn't really doing a lot for me. But I do think that in many ways, this is a show, and I should mention, I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to spoil it. Maybe I'll get to spoilers later on, but at least as of right now, we're going to remain spoiler free. But, as the show went along, though, I do think it kind of tricks you. It gets you to think that it is a certain type of show, and once there is, a mic drop moment, no pun intended, a certain thing happens. I forget which episode it is. I believe it's either 3 or 4. You stop questioning why he is acting the way he does, and things become a lot more clear. And I think that the way that the show does that is for many reasons. I think one, it doesn't want to get too heavy right off the bat, because that it would be really dark if they went chronologically here. But I also just think it's an interesting way to tell the story, and kind of, I think part of the story is the understanding someone's perspective when they're being a bit odd, quite frankly. We have to talk about the stalker, Martha, who is a weird character, an interesting character, a sympathetic character at times, despite also being a pretty big monster at times. She is stalking Richard Gadd, often by sending a lot of emails, many of them misspelled, where she's sending the emails typing, sent from an iPhone, sometimes misspelling that, as well as there was a lot of misspellings on these emails. And that, the compelling thing isn't that. I think that's what you go into the show to watch. That's the selling point, is, okay, it's a stalker, but really it is a character study of Richard Gadd and the tough things that he was going through. And I think more than anything, what that had an impact on with him, again, I don't want to spoil too much, because I don't want to, if you haven't seen it, don't want to give anything away, but how he responds to all of it, and kind of how honest he is with a lot of his feelings about this stuff. The fact that he admits some things that I wouldn't have admitted if I was in his shoes, certainly, and I think even the most open people wouldn't have admitted some of the stuff that he ends up admitting that he was thinking, and how he was going through, and how he was mentally processing this stuff. And I think this is a show that has a lot to say about what it means to be a victim of what he is a victim of. I think I'm probably going to have to get into spoilers. I think I'm just keep dancing around everything that I'm talking about. So I guess that'll be the end of my spoiler-free section of this review. But yeah, again, it is definitely not one, before I get into spoilers, just to recap, it is definitely not one to maybe watch with your parents, as it is a difficult watch at times. But I think that there is enough, important stuff there that if that is something you can think you can stomach, this is a very interesting show to watch, and I would highly recommend it. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. I think it was very well done, and I would just say, again, don't let the first, it was episode 4 that they kind of, I think the show really kicks into high gear. So, if don't let the kind of confusing nature of why is he doing certain things turn you off from the show and make you completely not watch it, because I think that you'll be missing out on some good stuff if you turn it off then. So yeah, that's it. Now let's get into spoilers. Okay, spoilers starting in 3, 2, 1. So yeah, I figured we can kind of, go through the show, talking more, less roundabout ways now that we get into it. But yeah, I thought it was really, really fascinating. So, for one thing that I just love, this is not spoilers, but the stand-up comedy stuff and the bad stand-up comedy, I don't know what it is about me. There's nothing that I find funnier than bad attempts at humor, and I thought that the bad attempts at humor completely cracked me up. Seeing someone try to be funny and fail at it, I don't know why. That's just something I really enjoy. So that was a thing. But yeah, I mean, you do get him, right? Like being a struggling comedian, like that's something that's very, I feel like, relatable in many ways. And the the shoe that dropped that I mentioned earlier, of course, with him, his experience with sexual abuse, and how you do have that power dynamic of that guy who is someone that you feel like you can get into the industry with. This is a very real thing that does happen, and a very real thing that did happen, which is, again, reenacting your own abuse is a bold thing to do, but so kind of, credit to being able to pull that off and to do it, because the acting was very, phenomenal in all of this. But again, that's not something everyone would want to do, is recreate that. But yeah, that just kind of made everything make more sense, because throughout the show, I was watching it and I was kind of like, okay, but why are you why are you being so nice to Martha? Why are you going along with all of these different things? I think it was a fair question to ask, but once that shoe drops, you're like, oh, this totally makes sense. Like, the show kind of out of nowhere, he starts doing drugs in one of the episodes, and you're like, wait, he does drugs? Why did the show just randomly have you do it here in a key spot? But then, like, now you're like, oh, because that's kind of, I get it now. I think that it was a really interesting way to kind of lull you into, you think you know what the show is, and then all of a sudden it's something else. And it was a really kind of clever way to do that with the, him telling the police officer thing. You think that's going to be a callback towards the end of the show of we're showing you this part, and at the end of the show we'll reveal what he says, instead of doing it at the middle of the show. And then the show becomes something very different, which I think some people didn't love the show because of the fact that it isn't a clear narrative, and it really isn't just this classic true crime stalker story that you think you're watching when you start watching it, which, again, if people want to watch that, they're going to be disappointed when it becomes something different. But once we figure out what he's going through, the story about Martha is very much becomes a supporting character instead of a co-lead, I would say, once we get to that point. The character of Donnie is dating a transgender woman, and seems to be happy with it, but because of the the Martha situation, and also the situation with the TV writer, can't really can't physically function there, and just in general can't is almost incapable of love, in a sense, isn't able to fully let himself go because of the bad experiences that he's had in multiple different ways. I mean, even when Martha is getting arrested, him being sad about it, and still that wall where he's doing all this information and still listening to, Martha say nice things to him just because he's kind of so broken. He wants to hear someone say nice things to him, even if it is a stalker. It's a really fascinating situation, and even ending with him crying at a bar, not having any money, and someone just ordering, and I think he even ordered I think it was like a vodka Diet Coke, if I remember correctly, something like that, but it was a Diet Coke in the drink, and the bartender just said, you're having a bad day, I'll pay for it, which is mirroring how Donnie met Martha in the first place. Is, obviously, I think kind of a sense of Donnie understands Martha in many ways, at least, and that's what the show is saying. You hear about how much abuse can hurt somebody, but seeing it in a way where you're not just seeing it hurt somebody and them being sad, but you're seeing it hurt somebody in a way where they're doing just destructive things after it because of the damage that they've faced, is a very real thing that does happen to abuse victims, and it's not always portrayed in that way. Usually it's just portrayed as they get abused and they're sad about it. This was I think a very realistic but a very harsh way to view it, which is what made this show so fascinating. Now, there has been, I guess we should probably talk about as well, some debate as to the truth of this story, I suppose. So the real life woman who played Martha was based off of, the real life woman had, of course, been identified, and she went on Piers Morgan to give an interview, because of course she did, and she claimed that a lot of the stuff wasn't true, which, like, listen, I don't know, I can't speak to how true or untrue it is or isn't. I mean, with all these shows, there's going to be an element of, I mean, and even to the point where the names were changed. I'm assuming some stuff was added for dramatic effect and things like that, right? But still, well, yes, that is that is worth mentioning, I think. It's also just kind of weird that we're doing that we're, every time we have one of these true crime things, these people become like celebrities. I don't want to hear what Martha has to say. I just don't. If it turns out she has like evidence to support some of the stuff was a lie, okay, that's interesting as well. But to me, I'm more fascinated in the work of art that was created here. And while I suppose if there's, if someone made a true crime scripted TV show about me, I would certainly want to get my voice out there. So I'm not saying she shouldn't be allowed to give an interview or Piers Morgan shouldn't be allowed to interview her. It's just not something I'm particularly interested in watching when, again, she is someone who was convicted of crimes in this nature. So, yeah, as a whole, I would say it was a really, really fascinating show. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's not the most satisfying ending, but it's intentional. It's not supposed to be a satisfying ending. It's not your typical true crime show. It doesn't have the, everything is, it doesn't have the grand win at the end where you catch the criminal and you're happy about it. That's what I liked about it, and it's going to be what some people don't love about it, but I found it interesting. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Baby Reindeer. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.